So here we have the cover. So the cover of the original. Why is the original? Because simply every five editions, we share an original version. The original version, it showcases advanced artists and an advanced design. So we don't use the basic layout that we used to use from the first to the fourth issue. This work is one of the selected artists from Indonesia, which is Ivan Lawrence. He's not actually with us, but hopefully we will receive him for later. The title here, we have the edition, the number of the edition, the artwork, not manipulated. And here we have the name of the artist that we had for interviews. Visual Art Magazine 2020. When we go there, so we have an inner cover. So this work is my latest work that I've done in collaboration with Luca Rossini. So it's a fashion performance, and then we made an editorial about it. The story behind this representation of me on performance art, it started in 2013, or in 2012, like the end of 2012, where I quit my job and decided to start my art career. So the first thing that I wanted to do intuitively is to go to some art exhibitions and to get to know what the exhibitions look like. So the exhibitions in my country, unfortunately, being very private, like, you know, private club. You need to be invited, they communicate you secretly the address, then you can attend the show, which I found it like inaccessible for me because I didn't have an art background, I didn't do any artworks before, so I didn't have the profile to be invited to this close circle. And here the ones, there was a big exhibition in a big gallery, and like it's invitation only, so you cannot really go there. So intuitively, I really wanted to go there, so I said, I cannot go as I can right now. So I left my place, like I went out from home to in the street and walked like this man on the street. So I walked there, go to the gallery, no one stopped me. I got to the exhibition, I performed in that exhibition, and I left this way. I've been for a long time the anonym artist of the capital because no one really knew about this expression before. And I was at that time the only performance artist over there. And the good thing on this expression is that I returned back to the exhibition when it was open to public, and I found the artist and I asked him, like, what did you do? I hear that you did something weird, strange that day, but I couldn't really see it. So then he said, oh yeah, so someone done a performance here. And then that was the day I discovered the word performance, because I didn't know that that expression, that's what we call in English performance. And then I understood that I could be a performance artist. So then later on, that was my turn on for body expression. It's like, there's a black hood when I'm on it, it's just like, it activates the performance mood on me. However, if I'm unprepared or not, I just get, everything is get possible while I'm black hood. The last work is like, I really worked a lot on my identity like this, but then the last one was not enough. So I tried to create copies of me. So I created, for every feeling, I created a copy of me, and then I made it with all in a ceremony as a fashion show. So that's the story behind it. So here I let more Luca Rossini talk about this.
This is basically my interpretation of your work.
Yes.
So it's not the first time for me to work on your concept. We did it on, when was it? 1 year ago, right?
2 years ago.
Yeah, okay, time flies. So I already knew what was, I mean, the concept, the idea, the darkness, and the power of it. Back at the time, I took the photos of your character. So last time, as I was saying, it was a performance. So I watched what you had in mind more than shoot it, even though there is a photograph from that session in the magazine too. The second time, instead, I think it was born first for the photos, and then it was presented. But we actually spent more time into creating this set of images. And this time we had the chance to work with a number of characters. So not you being your own piece of work, but having the models. So you could work on more visions, on more interpretations, and I did the same, I guess. In most of the editorial, I worked with between 2 or 3 characters because I wanted exactly this, the symmetries and the asymmetries between the characters to emerge. Singularly, they are powerful, but together they get mystique, I guess. They get sort of godlike, godlike. Yes, it's and it. I think you can. I mean, as an Italian, I can really relate with this. It's the sort of mystic figures that has always been around in the Mediterranean it's basically from the Egyptian. It's the same kind of. If I look at the guy on the left, I always imagined him like an Egyptian god. It's very strong. It's very, his position is like a statue. It was basically a living statue. So I tried to make it emerge as much as possible. While the girl in the middle, she's also spiky and I don't know, not very human. And the last one is basically medieval character. So it's now we see only one here in which we try to create a relationship between the figures, but there is the whole set in which we also play with the lights and other features to basically to show what's all the details in the blacks, because there is a lot of black. And so my interpretation, yes, is that these characters here are semi-human, not really human. So I tried to have that emerging in a disturbing way, so that there was not very much relationship between the observer and then the character. The character should stay there like watching, but you cannot see their eyes, so they're staring at you, but you cannot relate with their body movement or expression. So there is a lot of distance, and that is what I wanted to keep.
Well, so I think we will just right now we continue with the magazine here. We got the credit. Well, any of you guys, if you have specific questions, just like hit the button there, and we can unmute you, and then you can talk about just send a message, and then I just unmute you right there. If I go here on the quick credit, the magazine is registered as print and also as a digital. It's published by Al-Tiba9, and I'm the director curator. I also submit the interview to the artists. The copyright and text is also approved by Al-Tiba9. We operated for all the distribution and the promotion. We have here a special thanks for a partner who really supported us, Juan Carlos Mayayo from Barcelona. This edition is registered June 2020. It's located and registered on the National Library of Catalonia in Spain, and is printed in London.
So I'm a Los Angeles-based artist, but I'm not originally from here. I'm from the East Coast. And this project I did a few years ago when I did a residency in Iceland. In my work, I'm really interested in sort of exploring the concept of individuality. So in this work, I was really intrigued by Iceland as a country and how the people of Iceland relate to their names and how names play an interesting role in the culture. Because they don't have traditional last names like much of the world does. Because everybody's last name is their mother or father's first name with son or daughter tacked on the end of it. So they don't have that sort of family relationship that most kind of naming has. That you know if you say your last name is Brown, then there maybe all these other people, and you might not be related to them, but they have the same last name too. So in this project, I work with a composer from Iceland to create this this soundtrack to go with this video that I shot there, which in the soundtrack has all of the names in Iceland, because since I don't have last names, they have a list of first names that everybody has to pick from to use, because they're trying to kind of retain something about their culture. So in the soundtrack, we hear all 4,100 and I think it's like 29, I can't remember the exact number. We hear the names coming out of these 10 different speakers, along with some kind of atmospheric sounds. While in the video, we follow this young boy, kind of lone person, kind of walking through the landscape of Iceland.
But also the most interesting in this video project, because it's a video, is the installation and the way you present your work.
So there's the installation picture. So I had the speakers kind of set up around the room, so the viewer could kind of move around, and just depending on what speaker you're standing near, you're hearing something different. And then there were these islands also on the wall, and then the video it's a 4-channel composite, and that boy kind of walks from one screen to the next as we see these kind of 4 different landscapes at one time.
That's great. So this project has been exhibited in several exhibitions. It's like here you have an exhibition in Madrid. That's also by how you present it. It's really interesting work. I really like this work, and I find it very conceptual. It's very powerful presentation of video art as an installation. Congratulations for that. I asked one artist, and I said, before talking about your art, could you tell us about yourself? That artist said, that's such a difficult question. The most straightforward and honest answer would be to say that that artist is a natural-born storyteller. He's both a dreamer and a wanderer. He's curious and intrigued, and afraid and involved. He said, I'm very aware of the world we live in, and I am obsessed with the trails of turbulations and humankind. I also liked here, for example, when he said, I think this all comes from being what's officially known as third culture kid. So for the ones they don't know, this artist has a really great and attractive description. He says, in this sense that I was raised in a culture that wasn't my parents' or the culture of my country of birth. My parents are German. I was born in New York, but never lived in the US, and basically grew up between England and Mexico, speaking German, English, Espanol, Francais, Italiano. Since leaving home at an early age, I lived everywhere from Tokyo to Barcelona, Shanghai, to Mexico City, and now Italy. That was my reality growing up, and continues to be what keeps me motivated and inspired. I created from a place of truth, the truth of my existence, and that existence just happens to involve an unstable wanderlust and obsession with the lives of others. This artist is Alec Van Bergen.
I'm sorry, I'm sitting here in the south of Italy, sitting in a car outside of a hospital So I'm trying to get you the best connection possible. If you if it's completely cut off, I just thank you for this. Thank you for what you're doing, and a huge applaud. I applaud all the artists that are involved, and it's a pleasure and it's an honor being with you guys. I just, like I said, I just wanted to thank you, and I wanted to be a part of this and show you my support, and really appreciate what you're doing. And thank you for reading that extract from the question that you asked, which is, I think, a very important question, you know, and where we come from as artists and where it is we find the inspiration. Because many times it's from the external, but I believe we all carry baggage with us that influences and that at the end of the day is that signature that makes us also unique in our creation. So that paragraph that you just read is very dear to me, and it's very true. I feel like a stray dog, um a little bit from here, from there, and everywhere, and it kind of reflects in my work. My work is very much transient. It's very much about the world itself. It's social anthropology. It's studying people in places and the where, the whys, and the whats of how they exist, and then parlaying that into installations, video, images that go beyond the orthodox or what's expected of photography. So I try to break it up as much as possible, dirty the images to a point where I feel comfortable, because I don't believe life is perfection. I break up images a lot because to me, memory is not linear. When I remember this moment where I'm sitting here speaking to you, I'll start saying, well, I was speaking to Mohammed the other day, and I can't remember if he had a blue shirt on or was it a red shirt, and he was sitting in a dark room. Was it a light room? So memory is made up of moments, and breaking it up and trying to bring it all together. So these portraits that I create are basically very much monologues and soliloquies and questions that the subjects ask, and in which I insert my own questions and my own realities in order to find answers to the why of everything. No.
Thank,
Um,
thank you, Alex. Thank you for.
no, thank you guys. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody at Al-Tiba. You guys have been amazing, and I'm sorry I have to run, but yeah, it's kind of symbolic of the times we're living in.
Sure.
So I appreciate it, and a huge admiration to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex. Thank you for being a great
Ciao,
artist.
ciao. Good luck to everyone.
Luca Rossini.
Yep.
Yeah. So, do you know Alec actually?
I didn't. Now I love him.
Huh.
Ciao. No, I love him, especially because your representation is exactly the opposite of mine, but starting basically from you don't believe in memories, and you don't believe in perfection of nature. I actually don't believe in reality, and I don't believe in in the wholeness of conscience. My background is in biomedical engineering. I worked with the neurosciences for a long time. I worked in creating robotic arms for amputees so they could feel like they were their own arms. I worked with people who had strokes to move like they were actually moving. And then I stopped doing that. I started doing pointless art. But what really struck me all that time was understand. At the beginning was a feeling, as you say, that's the baggage. So at first it was a feeling, and then it became more than that. I started adding data to the fact that I could work with these people by tweaking their reality so they would feel things as normal, even if they weren't. And because if they were normal for them, it would have been much easier for them to work with that. And that's basically an approach you can apply to everything in life. And so for me, I mean, the very beginning, since the very beginning to now, it's always about what you feel reality, what you feel as normal, what you feel as, secure, and what suddenly becomes unsecure, not normal, unpredictable. And the timing we are living now, it's basically an explosion of what I was working on for 10 years. Is for everybody at the same time on the whole planet, things became unsecure, unpredictable, and nothing was real anymore. And so to the point that I cannot do art since it happened, because it's now I would talk about the reality again. So it became very difficult for me to interpret this timing. Okay, but that's another thing. So as opposite, my work is very clear, very punctual, because I believe that at any moment, if you speak with someone, they exactly know what the reality is and they're sure about their memory. So, so I work with that. I work exactly the opposite. The beginning is the same, but for me, instead, an image has to be hyper real. So real that it becomes suddenly unreal. And you can feel that it's unsecure. There are too many details. There's too much. There isn't really space. And there's so many things that at a certain point you cannot relate with that reality anymore. So well, you're basically doing the opposite. All this dirt makes it very relatable. I see and I feel it basically. I don't feel detached from it. I get absorbed. So even though it's nothing is clear,
Yeah.
but you see, but I really love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, then we will continue. So I think for both, I really like this interacting connection. I think both of you are in the warm Italy over there. So, you know, you get that connection even stronger.
The same. I mean, you know.
I just opened the window. So.
Okay, I'm saying goodbye. Grazie.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Grazie, Luca. Thank you. Take care.
See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.
I am Samantha Schneider. I am from Ohio, and I have recently started getting back into realism painting. I got out of it for a while, but I started to become more interested after watching a lot of cinema and film noir, and I was very interested in the way they handled lighting and positioning of characters. And so I wanted to include that in painting and bring a similar feel to painting. So mixing movie with painting, and this is the result I got, and I was very happy with it. And I have been really pushing for high saturation and trying to really pull out emotions within people using color and contrast, and also emotions portrayed on the figures I represent. And this is a self-portrait I took. And yeah, I was exploring the use of color and pose, and that is everything I represent right there.
Hi everyone. So I'm from Lisbon, and I work with video art, painting, installation. But one of the main things that I search for is the frame, the video frame, which means that almost all of the scenes, or almost all of the takes, are supposed to be something in between two frames that I study. And I think it was Alec that was talking about memory, and I also work with memory and the foundations of all thought. So the thing is, and I'll quote, I don't know who said it, but someone once told me that memory is the strangest dog. You throw it a stick and it brings back something else. And this is some sort of the idea that I try to portray here. When I search for something in my memory, it brings back something else. So this is also connected a lot into the power of the word, and its connection, its direct connection with the image. So that's why some of the images are a bit blurry and have this sort of lo-fi feeling. it's because it's so hard to portray video on a magazine, which is not its medium. But when you work towards a work of video art to achieve a frame, or ideally, if you would pause my work in any frame possible, it would be something a bit studied. So I don't require a rigor in creation or in the final result, but I do enjoy rigor in thought and in words. And that's important because it's what you work with, what you organize things with. So to me, this work, Contained Turbulence, means something that turbulence that we all have in all times of our lives, as a containment, but also as something, as a potential, something with potential to become something else. So exploring memory, place, because everything exists in a place. So exploring all of this in one work, the text, I mean, the text that's spoken is the text that shows. There's only slight differences every now and then just to impact things, but the connection with the word, the fact that it's always present, it's not a subtitle, it's part of the work. I think it makes it a pretty comprehensive vision of how I see the world. So the intention here is to bring people into my own world, into the way I see it, and to see how my memory, my own dog, brings back something else when you throw it a stick. So yeah, I think it was able to convey that. Also the feelings of some ideas of individuality within the community. So what it withdraws from it, from your individuality, but also what you can gain from it. It's a pretty nihilistic approach, but not nihilistic at all. So in the end result. So everyone that sees it takes something, but believe me that I'm taking more from it than anyone else. So it ends up being this process. I don't know if you have any remarks or questions.
I would invite Elizabeth recently to comment on the video work. So what do you think about this approach and how it's similar and different to yours?
Well, it was interesting, you know, hearing what you had to say. It's, as you say, also, it's very hard to sort of picture the video work in the magazine format. You know, we sort of get glimpses of like, seems like memories, as what you were talking about. There's, it looks kind of surreal in these sort of scenes. But I'd be interested to hear, you know, is there a narrative thread that runs through the work?
No, there is, and within that narrative, or if we interpret this in a more diegetic way, there's always a narrative, but there's also space for you to create your own narrative as a reader or as a viewer. So the thing is, the idea is not to tell a story, but to guide you through a feeling. And on the interview, I say that when I associate a certain kind of place, when I bring it back to myself, or the first time I remember it, there's some sort of color associated to it. And if I can't bring color to it, it means that the place is not mine anymore, or it was never mine. So I wasn't able to build. If you build memories because something happened there, and only then it becomes a place. Okay, so when the narrative is established, there's always something. There's a body. There's a connection with the body that allows you to follow and disconnect sometimes from the base narrative. But it sometimes may feel disconnected a bit, and that's where you fill in the gaps. So this is the idea of if you see a picture, if you see a set of 3 pictures or 2 pictures, and in one you see a person with something in her hand or in his hand, And the second picture, you see that thing in midair, blurred. So you will fill in the gap. You will say, okay, this person threw it and it's already in midair. And if the person's angry, it's probably going to hit someone and that person misbehaved or something. So I let you fill in the gaps in between words, and that distance that goes in between words, action, action, body, body, color, and then the narrative that is proposed with a certain cadence that allows you to get into the work without feeling that you're being imposed something. There's always a bit of something that's relatable with someone, with everyone. So in the end, I guess you can bring a lot to the work, and that's the thing that really hurts me. It's not being able to talk with everyone that sees my work, because when I do, I sure learn a lot, especially my work and myself.
So I study fashion design at FIT in New York for my master, but in that process, I kind of got into performance art, and then after on, I've been just working on fashion performance, and I use secondhand garments and upcycled garments to kind of become my medium, and with my movements to do things on them to convey my ideas. So this particular project is about immigrants, and I named them New Americana because I am a person who moved to America and experiencing all these things. And it's kind of, this series separate down into 4 different chapters, and it's kind of like breaking out from your old habits to try to adapt to a new culture, and then trying to learn as many new things in this new place, and then might become a burden, which is what is shown here. And then you have to break yourself down and then rebuild your rebuild your backs up and make yourself new again for this new country. And then in the end, it's kind of like making peace of who you become and realizing that there's a community. Yes.
The intriguing side is the title New Americana, where it comes from.
So it comes from several different places that I heard of Americana. One is from the book Americana, and also just Americana is more like a Spanish used word. And especially when I started doing this project, it's when Donald Trump started really running for the campaign and talking all about Mexicans especially. And so I really want to use that word to highlight the immigrant issue here in America.
Right, so it's like, also, I just want to say to everyone that you also, in your photography, so you perform, not only doing the fashion design of photography, but also you work with other performers.
Yes.
Also,
sorry.
You go.
I use some other performance artists with me at the last performance because I really wanted to convey the idea of we are not alone and we have a community that's going through the same maybe personal, emotional, or just immigration process. So I invited some other dancers or performance artists to do this piece with me. For the textile, I actually struggle a little bit with textiles in the beginning of my school year, but later on it's kind of like realizing textile is not only a flat surface and there's a lot of techniques that can be used on. So for the clothes, I do some, not like hand dye, but like in the process of me embracing the other performer, and then with our paints on our body, and it's kind of like adding color onto the garments. So it's kind of like, not like printing, but more like hand dyeing in a sense onto the clothes and make them into a new, adding more textile experience onto the clothes. And for me, I always love runway because I study fashion, but maybe just for me personally, is performance is such a different way to communicate the ideas, and there's so much more to do with it. And
let's ask Luca Rossini about his opinion on this performance and fashion work.
Okay, so first of all, thanks a lot. I really love the aesthetics.
thank you.
I love also how I mean there is a very strong Asian photographic approach to this. I can see a lot of Taiwanese and Korean movies colliding into this red, and your expressions and the stillness and the lines. It's so clean and messy at the same time. So I really like it. Then coming to what Mohammed asked me, I love this. I think, okay, it's complicated, but once you get into contemporary fashion, so that line between fashion and art, that this is the thing. So the performance, you cannot avoid the performance, basically. As you said, it's the textile, the clothes alone, they speak until a certain point, and then if you want to do an extra step, you need to put them in motion, which is not just walking up in front of a runway. You need to do something else, which at a certain point is not fashion anymore. It's something, I don't think we really have a word right now for what it is.
Hello guys, how are you?
Good, good. So if you've been around Venice last year in Arsenal at Art de Laguna Prize, definitely you stopped in front of this artwork. It mastered the show. I would say now personally, congratulations for last year's show. And I'm really happy on featuring your work and especially sending you the questions talking about it. And, so let us know who is Jipko.
I guess I'm really not that much of an artist. At least I cannot really draw anything. I've played some music, but not that well. So my career as an artist basically is building contraptions that do the work for me, because I really can't do it myself. Yeah. Actually, so basically I build these installations, these interactive installations, which people get to try. But the sort of the artifact that's left behind becomes the art. So in this case, the one that you saw in Italy, in Venice, people would enter this little photo booth thingy and have these old machines draw their portraits, and they would get to leave with their portrait in hand, which is sort of ironic in these times, because everything is virtual and augmented and AI and whatever, and people found it very refreshing to actually leave with the paper-based carbon portrait of themselves. So that was kind of funny. And this work that I submitted is also sort of doing the same thing, which is I built this installation which basically uses AI and cheap cameras and software, and basically spied on people for a few months, and people would look at the device and stand there and get their pictures taken, and then I would project that, and at the end I had like 2,500 portraits that were taken. I was like, well, I should be doing something with that. And so I started combining them and colorizing them, and this is what this work ended up like. So it's many people have been speaking of reality and memory, and I think this is also a thread in my work. Whereas yeah, memory is interpretative. I mean, this is not something that's actually. It's the dog that Pedro was talking about. I mean, you think you remember someone's face, but you really don't, unless it's somebody who's really familiar. But even then, you really don't. and these portraits that I've been working on sort of extract like salient features from people's faces. So if you know the people that are displayed, you can sort of like fill in the blanks. Your brain will do the whole gestalt thing and like fill in the missing information. But if you don't, then they become these abstract objects which you don't really relate to in personal terms, at least. So yeah, I'm also like playing on this idea of what is reality and what is perception, and what memory, what role memory plays in recollection and interpretation of what you see. And obviously I'm using technology to do that, because as I said, I'm really not much of I don't have any talent really in terms of drawing. So the machinery I use usually is old crap, basically, like old devices that nobody want anymore. And I just repurpose them. And these devices that we see on screen now are actually from the 1980s, and they're plotters. And once the printers came out, nobody wanted them anymore. And so you can like get them for next to nothing on eBay, but they're excellent machines. They still do the work the same way they did back then. So there's also this idea of, well, what's our relation with old stuff and with technology and progress? And should we just be discarding whatever is not cool anymore, or should we not? So like using old devices, but then again, using like brand new software techniques such as AI and machine learning and all that, it creates these like monster-like contraptions fusing like old devices that nobody wants anymore with these new cutting-edge software technologies that like make it look cool. Yeah, so that's sort of the process I've been using.
Let's say I want to have my portrait. I'm in an exhibition or I see your work. How it works? It looks very futuristic. It's like I'm almost scared to touch. You know,
yeah. Actually, it's the opposite of that. It's like I said. Those are just like PVC pipes and old devices that I bought for $20 on eBay and that I built, and it's really just like old junk, really. Old software, old touchscreen that I got from an ATM machine. So it's really just these old devices that people are sort of intrigued by. And it was especially interesting to see like the younger generations looking at these devices for the first time, finding them somehow attractive because they're used to like, you know, rectangles, glassy rectangles. This is what they use all the time now. And these are like mechanical, and they move, and they have these features that are not so common now. I mean, we're used to like virtual reality and augmented reality and touching screens, but having like physical parts move around and wires and these kinds of things, they for some reason, at least for the younger generations, this is a novel thing for them too, which is kind of ironic.
How like a visitor, how it gets his profile printed? Like he needs to get inside of the installation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is like a photo booth, basically, a deconstructed photo booth. So there's really nothing special about it. You just step inside, and it grabs your portrait and then uses this line-based technique that I've been developing over the years to draw your portrait. So you see the little end drawing the portrait line by line. It's like a tedious and long process, and it's like the slowest selfie there is. And again, the teenagers that would step in, they'd have their phone and do the selfie thing and click, and then it was like there's still 5 more minutes to wait, because this thing is super slow, and you could see in their face like the confusion. Why is this so slow? Why am I waiting for a portrait? I can just do this all the time and it's instant. And so yeah, there's also this idea of our relation to time and everything being instantaneous now, the TikToks and the Instagram and the Snapchat and whatever. So yeah, it's sort of playing on that level also.
And do you work on a new project right now similar to this? Continue this idea, make it.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that they've pretty much altered work during the whole pandemic, which is also what I ended up doing for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm doing a new work probably this fall using iPhones. So discarded all iPhones, and trying to figure out why we are discarding iPhones that are still working, and what can we do with them. So I got a grant and bought like 100 iPhones for quite cheap, actually, iPhone 5s. At least in North America, nobody wants them anymore, which is also ironic because they sometimes get sent overseas and become like the latest fashion in some countries, which also tells a lot about how the world considers these objects and how they are some. I mean, they're basically fashion in some countries and much more functional in other countries. So yeah, I'm basically doing the same old thing, using an old technology and trying to see where I can go with it.
Do you need internet for this installation or not?
No, actually, it's standalone. It's like I said, it's very old stuff. So there was no internet when these devices were used back in the 80s. Well, actually, internet was there, but there was no web. So no, there's no need for that. It looks futuristic or whatever, but it's really not. It's kind of retro futuristic.
Okay, good. Well, so thank you very much for this explanation. It's really interesting. I really love your work, and I like the portraits. And then it's double portrait here, actually, as was what I see. It's like two.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, and I was aiming for the threshold between the two. It's like you could see one, but not the other. And if you look at the other, you know, like these two faces, the classic optical illusion thing. So I was sort of aiming for that. Yeah.
Hey there. Yeah, I'm Connor. I'm from London, but I've been living in Barcelona and practicing here for a couple of years. Yeah, so yeah, I have a background in philosophy and aesthetics. So a lot of that kind of guides my art. I'm originally an oil painter, but I like to kind of explore like a Hegelian dialectic of polar opposites. So yeah, I started off painting and I started to explore how the photograph can be a painted image. How when we take photographs, we use kind of allegory and story or the kind of logic of painting to create an image. And thinking about that, I tried to explore like what pure photography was, like what makes photography an art form in itself, rather than something which kind of steals from painting and tries to replicate it in some way. So removing kind of narrative and documentalism and everything, you're kind of left with pure form. A lot of it is inspired by the was it F-64 movement in California. So in many senses, it doesn't try to say anything other than its own formalist property. It doesn't want to express necessarily any concept, except to just try and find photography at its purest. And yeah, in many ways, I have a similar series which explores the natural world as well. It's kind of like realizing that the world arranges itself in its own kind of logic, and just simply delineating a border just, I don't know, gives it its own expression. It's not, nothing is really made, it's only captured, which I think is photography at its purest. And yeah.
This photography on the right side, I guess, is in Barcelona, because I think I recognize the place.
Yes, it's in Forum.
Oh, yes, like this.
Yeah, it's very, very close.
Glorious, right now. Yeah, it's like after 6 years living here now, it's like, okay, I know almost each part of the city. And about this one here, Castillo.
That's if you go further up from Forum towards Badalona.
Oh, I don't go very often, that's why.
Okay, yeah. If you continue walking past the staircase for 30 minutes, you'll find a power plant. So yeah, a lot of this was inspired by a specific walk towards the disused power plant with the 3 towers. I'm sure you know it, Mohammed. So
far from my rooftop, I can see those 3 towers. So.
yeah. It's an amazing structure. Yeah.
Well, I can see also when I read that you are co-founder at the last Universal Creative Ancestor that gallery. Couldn't you introduce that a little bit for the artists?
Yeah, it's currently I'm looking for funding for it, and the idea is it takes. Do you know the last universal common ancestor, which is the first single-cell organism from which all life kind of began? The first cell of life, basically, and that's genetics and replication through evolution. So taking that idea and applying it to creativity, I basically found the first ever product of the human mind, the first attempt to create something, which was a hand axe, which was too big to use as a tool. So it was a kind of ceremonial thing, something that had significance in a more cultural sense. And the idea is that's the beginning of the evolution of creativity, from which everything else kind of spread. So yes, last universal creative ancestor, I hope over my career to kind of establish a kind of forum for cross-disciplinary exploration, because it all has, the same root, the same origin. They're just different outcomes, really.
We have the British artist Philip Mccain. You should definitely have seen his work before and on a cover of your favorite movie or your favorite fiction book. So I just scroll on the artists who are not present with us today. Definitely you can read all the interview and information online, because all the interviews are published on the website, and also you can get them on your magazine. Nick Irving is a Belgian artist. He couldn't attend today because he is already in another interview in his studio, but we will make a special interview with Nick, and he's going to offer also a real visit actually in his huge studio to showcase and show you also the work he has. So he does a 3D sculpture, deep printing as well, and a lot of digital work. So you can read all the interview on the website and also on the magazine. We go now to Giovanni. Giovanni De Benedetto is the cover artist on issue 3, and he's been with us in this this original issue. I personally really love his work. I'm connected to his work. You are definitely connected to his work. We all done this exercise, when we used to be kids. Giovanni still do it till now.
Okay, so basically what I do is to paint with a technique called klexography. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, klexography is a specific technique for creating images starting from ink blots. If the outcome of this process is coherent with myself at the first sight, and I'm going to shoot it with my camera. So it's a mix between painting and photography. That's the technical part of my work, but for make you understand better the idea behind premature, I invite you to take each premature artwork as a mirror for reflecting yourself into it. What I mean is that since every one of us is unique, I will say is one of a kind, we will reflect ourselves differently in each artwork, and so we could see different things into it. So I like to think that a premature artwork holds not one artwork, but several artworks inside one. And it depends who look at it and who discover certain features other than others.
Yeah. It's like, especially I read some comments on internet that people found the rabbit on your work, right?
Yeah. There are several rabbits.
Raise hands if you find one rabbit, by the way.
But where you see it?
Cute rabbit, you know.
Me, one in the center, and each of the ears are a rabbit themselves.
On the side, on their side, right?
The center one is a rabbit, he has ears, but also the ears are two rabbits.
Oh, actually, yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Golden necklace, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry?
I said blonde, long hair.
Yeah. A friend of mine in exhibition said that there are other two rabbits on their side with blonde wigs.
Yeah, exactly.
But for me also, there is the whole artwork is a rabbit. The eyes are the golden part on the sides. The nose is the center, and then the clear rabbit is the mouth.
And it's 4.
So the work is
yes, or more than 4. I don't know. Yes, what is happening is basically is the core of my project, because if we keep for ourselves our personal artwork that we create in our mind, the whole project would lose the 50% of its potential, because again, the power of premature to me is that sharing different thoughts among us. Okay. And yes, I want my work that can be a vehicle for spreading new ideas and embracing more perspective among people at the same time, for broadening our point of view and feeling more close as human beings. A process for create empathy. That's the core of the process, the project.
I can see that the work we are featuring in the original magazine is different techniques. It's a new techniques that we are using. It's different than the issue 3.
Yes.
That the technique in here is not similar to this one or to this one. So let us, what's the difference? And especially the process, because I'm intrigued about the background, which is very neat, you know, why you have this and how you can get this 3D. So I would love you to talk a little bit about the process.
Okay. The difference between the past collection until 2018 and the one that I created during my artist residency in Berlin last year, it's not the process itself, but the material that I used. Okay, before I used some white paint and the texture were inside the cardboard. Now or better, last year I started to use some acrylics that stay above the cardboards. I want to create something three-dimensional, but I didn't count that this three-dimensional thing can cause other effects when I shoot with the camera, because the lights reflect itself into these textures. So yes, I don't post-produce the shape, okay, but of course I post-produce a bit the background and the colors.
Hello from Brno in the Czech Republic.
Hello.
Thank you for invitation to your meeting. But my English is not perfect. Adela will translate my philosophy.
Pavel is interested in creating physically accessible spaces. When you enter this space, you activate some sort of light occurrence. These occurrences may present themselves as some sort of mixing the light and materials used and surrounding materials. Though these occurrences are optical, they depend on our on the movement of our physical body, and they do not let us stay still. The movement is necessary for a full experience. Every individual has the disposition for perceiving light with their two eyes, and for every person is a little bit different, it's unique. And then this binocular vision makes us see the space as a 3D. Pavel makes his spaces such that they disrupt your binocular vision and deconstruct the space as we are used to perceiving it. In his works, each of our eyes our eyes together. They are not able to focus on one point, as that's how vision usually works. But in Pavel's work, this is not possible. The dense calligraphy shows the movement from outside. You can see the movement from outside because it describes the movement of the dancer with lights. These are two possible ways of perceiving the movement: from inside your own person and from outside, seeing other person move.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. It's good to see you today. I am based in London now, and my work's kind of a figurative female portrait painter. And my work is primarily concerned with the tension of the flesh and the instinctive desire. So I always employ the domineering poses, vivid colors, high contrast lighting, and some tight costume. So for me, it's kind of elements is a symbolism for implying audience about the sexual innuendo and the repression. And I prefer the vulgar and the ambiguous light. For me, it's a kind of hint of the society gaze on women. So my works can be summarized with the three words: female, obsession, and life. So it's done.
Created more works.
Yeah.
Is it, from the Pink Lady? Then you create even more, more powerful. I would have loved to feature them in the magazine, but they didn't exist by that time.
It's cool.
How big are your paintings?
Actually, it's not too big. It's around 20 inches by 30 inches. And actually, I made some larger one, but yeah, it's hard to carry from the country to country, so I gave up because I am still a student. I don't have my own studio now, so it's hard to make a large one.
Great. I find this work kind of related a little bit on the expressions of Pedro and Samantha Schneider.
The thing that I find more interesting about this work, or the most interesting thing, is that I can't quite, my eye isn't drawn to a certain specific point. I know that Rokong's work is about power as well. So it also breaks the hierarchy of focal points in the work. Usually from neoclassical painter, you'll get something to look at, some predefined structure that is completely abolished here. So you kind of get the feeling of the composition. You can look at anywhere, but you're not teased to go to this point or that point. And the image is very visceral in its presentation. So the person's laying there bare naked, but with something to hide, but no focal point. And it gets its sexualization a bit everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So the power kind of dissipates. This is what draws me to this work. You have two works there, and it's a good contrast in between them. The colors, and I'm a color person, despite not usually working on it with it, except for that work. But this shows this difference of not being able to pinpoint force. I think this is my take on it.
Thanks so much.
We'll go to Ivan Lawrence right now. He's not here. He's not with us. He's an Indonesian digital artist. And he is also featured on the cover of the magazine. He deals with fabricated images and fabricated realities. So we'll scroll on his work. So you can read full interview online and also more information on the magazine.
Okay, thank you very much. I was born in Nigeria, and I got education on art in America. And since 1986, I settled down here in UK. And since then, I've been working too many works and doing graphic art, freelance photography. But at the break of the Arab Spring, I pick up my brush again to start painting. So because I'm influenced by the Renaissance artists of the year of when people use their work to talk about what is happening in their world. So now in 2008, Obama was elected as the president of America. I was so excited about it, not because I like Obama. I don't consider Obama to be a black person, but the dream of Martin Luther King, that the black and white will sit down together in a brotherhood, is what I saw in Obama. And I'm so happy because America said that they are nation, one nation under God. So I want the unity of the color, and both black and white, Asia, everybody to unite, to have a great nation. But unfortunately, as soon as Obama gets to power, the far right are coming out of their closet and they are talking, we have to get our country back. They are doing this. Donald Trump was mouthpiece for all these far right people, and he was ranting all the time. He was querying Obama, criticizing that Obama is not American. So that's the basis of this. I just did a satire about his ranting. So I mean, my background, I'm a Yoruba man. Before the British came to that area, creating a Nigeria. There's no country called Nigerian before, but we have different empire, a stable government before British put us all together called Niger area. That's the meaning of Nigeria. So before the British came, we have monarchy system of government. The leader of the monarchy we call Oba, which means king. So when during the second election of Obama, all these racist people, they say that Obama will be one term president. We have to go get our country back. So when the Obama was re-elected second term, so I did this painting just to appreciate that Obama came back to power. So, and still the Matomat President Obama, Donald Trump now was ranting that he knows it's not right to have him. So that's why I make this painting. Like in my culture, Yoruba, nobody dare to question Oba. If you question Oba, you got your head chopped off. That's why I put the chopping block and the axe behind Donald Trump. So I just try to do satire. Like in America, the Fox TV is the medium for anti-Obama people. They are yelling, they use a lot of propaganda on Fox TV. So I created the Fox on the left-hand side, and then the Obama with the, so everybody say Obama is the first black president. So that's why I make him to wear African regalia robe of king in Yoruba land. So he uses his staff of authority to shut up the mouth of Fox TV, and Trump is using his money in the middle to beg Obama to spare his life. And so there's a chain in Trump's hand, and the people at the back appreciating Obama, and they are shouting, cut off his head, cut off his head. So that's just the scenario of this one. So before this man comes to power, I know that he's a racist. Everything that people see now is what I saw in this man, for him attacking Obama rigorously.
So how do you deal with your work today?
Yeah, today, like I said, I like to be a political activist with my work. So whatever comes into the news is what I will.
Well, thank you very much, Amit. It was a pleasure to hear your description of the work. You can also read the full description of the work on the magazine. I will go now to the last artist with us present. I will go here to Yaroslav, or alias Yar. Hello.
Oh, hello everyone. Well, generally, I don't quite. I'm not quite sure that I should translate the exact rules how to read my works. Still, while creating my visuals, I touch a couple of key motives and subjects which are very close to me since my student years. So as you know from the interview, I've got the first education I've got was philological. So I mostly learned literature and psychology of Western culture of 19th and 20th century. So as you may see, many works created by me are monochrome with some color accents, and that's intentional because I believe that the minimal use of color and tools may really helps user to see the essence. So speaking of this image, I was inspired by American Romanticism of the 19th century, like Hawthorne, like Edgar Allan Poe, etc. So it's a kind of classic imaginary world, a bit gloomy, big dark one, but still very poetic and very beautiful.
Interesting. I said that Yar also has a full interview about his work on the website. Just click on the magazine or in the interview section to read the full information. Thank you, Yar. I have a great news also for the artists in the magazine that yesterday we've been invited to showcase the magazine on the International Art Fair, or International Fair of the Art Book. So we'll be showcased in Barcelona in July. We'll be also showcased in Madrid, and it will be also good news for Pedro, will be showcased in Lisbon. Hopefully that the limited copies will make it to there because we still just have probably 40 or 30 left. So we will showcase it, so it will be exhibited. That's great. Also, we have offered 500 copies to the Tama Art University in Tokyo, Japan, as they recommended as a reference in design for the doctoral degree. My future perception of the magazine as true as a tool to feature artists. It's like a result of a small competition, but later on would like to illustrate it on a real exhibition. So that's the intention behind the every issue. So here is the website, so you can see, here where you can get all the information, the dates as well. So we're going to be on the next one here in Barcelona, which is going to be on 24th of July, from 24th to 26th. I will make sure that all you can get a visibility during the event, like to exhibit probably small prints of every article in the magazine. So like to promote you during this art fair. In Barcelona, next one, Lisbon will be in May, which is in 13 to 16 of May, and Madrid will be for next year. That's all for now. Thank you for your time. You guys from the US got to have a coffee. I know I just took your time. You need the second coffee. It's done for me today. Cheers. And thank you for all your energy. And I would say congratulations. I'm very proud, more than happy, very proud I'm working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Ciao.